Do we look a little too far over? Hold on. Let me get my high-tech camera turner. Oh, there we go. That looks better. Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time around, we started off the Dæmons. What was that one about?
Or demons. They pronounced it both ways.
Yeah.
Actually, this was one of the more fascinating ones that we've seen so far, at least in my opinion. They had, an archaeologist who was going to open up this crypt beneath an old churchyard, and unfortunately, apparently, unleashed some kind of demon. Yeah. We don't know exactly what it is, but it brought a gargoyle to life and did some other things, brought cold wind, and anyway, it turns out that the Master had summoned it up, and we have an entire season now of the Master, apparently.
Yeah.
And it froze the Doctor for a while, but he managed to survive, and then it put a big dome over the village, and it was very complicated, but it was fascinating to watch. It was seriously, again, one of my favorite stories so far.
Yeah. So, it's basically these Dæmons from the planet Dæmons have been visiting Earth every so often for the past 100,000 years, and the remnants of their technology is how we get our stories of witchcraft and wizardry and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so the Master is using that to summon Azal. And then I think where last we left, it was not going well for the Master. I think Azal was starting to turn on him.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it's just this very interesting sort of Halloween-ish story. Also with, it's a story with Unit, like always. But at the same time, it's kind of like, Unit at the beginning of the day, like they just jumped out of bed and everything. Like,
yeah. And the Brigadier had gone off to some fancy, dress party or something, and then a couple of his guys are inside the dome, and then he's outside the dome.
Yeah, so it's all very, very interesting. But yeah, we are watching the last 2 episodes today. So with any luck, this will be a shorter video. But you know us, it probably won't be. So
I was going to say, getting off the track right here at the beginning. The whole idea, and I can't remember if we mentioned this last week, the planet Dæmons visiting Earth and doing all this stuff. Again, I don't know. It's right about this time that there's this guy named Eric von Däniken who writes a book called Chariots of the Gods, where he was one of the first to posit this idea of aliens coming down specifically to help the Egyptians in building the pyramids and that sort of thing, and how many of our earlier civilizations might have possibly been helped by, people from other planets.
Yeah. So, it could be possible. That's also sort of just the basis of Doctor Who, I suppose, that this alien is sort of helping the Earth, It even gets to a point where, later on, the 12th Doctor, they basically, all the leaders of the world, they're like, okay, well, we need a sort of president of Earth in times of crisis, so they elect the Doctor, actually, without him knowing it. So they sort of give him all this strange power that he doesn't want or anything. But yeah, it is sort of like that, but you're right, this whole thing of like, these aliens, they've been showing up here for 100,000 years, and it's like, oh, well, that's a major piece of lore, I feel like you just dropped there, that I feel like will never be brought up again, but still. So yeah, I'm very interested to see where we're going in these last 2 episodes. You got anything else?
Well, we were also talking about really great location work.
Yeah.
The opening sequence there in the rain, out there in the village, and the churchyard, the graveyard out there in the church, and the old man dying of fright. And so,
yeah.
And what was her name? The lady's name, who is the
Mrs. Hawthorne.
Yeah,
I think.
Interesting. The Hawthornes were the family that produced the judge in the Salem witch trials in the early 1600s. We've been to that cemetery up in Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah, so at least I think it was Hawthorne, but I can't fully remember.
Yeah.
But
yeah, she's the local, legacy witch, as it were.
Yeah.
But she's the good witch. She's trying to use what knowledge she has to defeat the dark powers.
Yeah, calm the spirits, and the spirits that are specifically being upended by the Master.
Yeah.
So, and I just love this idea of the Master doing all these like pagan witchcraft rituals and stuff like that. It's just an interesting idea because he is a Time Lord.
Yeah.
And there was also that moment where he tried to hypnotize her and she was actually able to overcome it. So it's like, oh, okay, so hypnosis by a Time Lord and the powers of a witch. Now, I didn't think those would be colliding on Doctor Who, but here we are. So,
but other than that, I got nothing else.
yeah, so this is the end of the season. So we may or may not be taking a break from the Master after this, because I know when we watched Curse of Peladon, he was not in that. So yeah, next week we will start off season 9, which I think the next 2 or so are 4-parters. So we'll just power through those one at a time. And when we rewatch Curse of Peladon, we'll also be doing a modern episode, like we did with, what was the last one we watched?
Mummy on the Orient Express.
Yeah, and that was with Terror of the Autons at the beginning of the season. So we'll be watching a 13th Doctor episode.
Yay.
In order to round out watching all the modern Doctors, and that will be, what is it, season 11, episode 6, Demons of the Punjab, I believe it's called. Okay. So, yeah. But we'll get to that when we get to that. With that said, let's just go ahead and jump right back into the Dæmons. Here we go.
In the name of the unspeakable one, back! Not me a Siramad! Back!
It is amazing how he can play off of nothing so many times.
Convenient ladder placed against the side of the wall there.
Well, the fixer was going to bring in a new light bulb. Takes a while for them to ship in.
Do you know what you're doing?
My dear chap, I can't wait to find out.
Speak!
I'm gonna start saying that from now on.
I am the Master. I called you here. That I know. Tell me why you now call me.
Is he a goat?
Give me your knowledge
Perhaps.
and your power.
A space goat?
Why? My race destroys its failures. Remember Atlantis. Yes, but surely
But-
silent. I am the last of the demons. This
Only Pertwee says Dæmons.
smell.
But again, very much a satyr of Greek mythology. You know, big curly hair, hairy shoulders, looks like he has goat legs.
Now, he says, we destroy failures. I mean, remember Atlantis? Is like, I do remember that episode where the Doctor was there.
And it comes out here. Right?
He wrote that backwards.
I think.
Yes, Sergeant. I sometimes wish I worked in a bank.
The Doctor doesn't need a helmet because he has all that hair. Oh, see?
You'd think a guy with a hunting rifle could hit a target better than that.
Well, how long are you going to be?
A minute, sir. I've got the hang of it now. Half an hour, sir. At least.
Yeah. This guy's getting demoted when we get back.
Inspector's making his way back to the village by now. Then we received he's given a suitable welcome, hasn't he?
Well, what do they think they're doing?
Oh no, the Ren Fair is here.
It's the maypole.
Get inside. Stay away.
Or you'll be taken under the spell of the accordion.
Yes, the power of Weird Al.
Oh Lord, this looks like a Monty Python sketch.
It really does.
But this would make sense if the Beltane is the end of April.
And they're round the twist, if you ask me.
It's
Then May Day would be
we
the
always
next
have
day.
the Morris dances on May Day. It's traditional.
I think Monty Python does a sketch like this where they end up slapping each other.
No. No. Maybe they directed this scene. It's a crossover.
please, let me pass. Thank you. Any other time I'd gladly join you, but
Oh my gosh.
I'm sure you don't want to disappoint us, or Mr. Magister.
You seem to have stopped.
You went through all of this just to put a gun to his face? Oh no, they have a stick! Aw, come on, Benton.
Kick him in the nads.
Come on!
Smash a teapot over his head.
Use your witchcraft!
Oh, there you go.
Oh, finally.
the master's planning to make slaves of you all. I'm the only one who has a chance of stopping him.
This got really goofy.
He is the enemy. You've always known what you must do with a witch, haven't you?
Oh my god.
Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live.
Turn me into a newt. I got better.
Huh.
That's right, friends. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Burn him!
Oh my gosh. Is there no police officer in this town? They're just going to burn him.
Serve the great Queequeg. In him lies peace and great joy.
If he's such a great magician, let's see him untie himself.
You choose to mock the great Creequeg?
Give him a sign of your power, O mighty one.
The car. He has the remote control, doesn't
That
he?
lamp. Shatter it.
Lamp? I order you to shatter.
Or Benton has a gun.
Yeah.
You see? Look at the
Car.
weathercock on the church tower.
Dang it.
Weathercock! Now!
This is some great aim he's got there.
Bird, crook.
Ooh!
Let my familiar spirit bring that car to me.
Ah, I knew it. They did that for a reason.
I'm sorry to disappoint you, madam. But if I were, I'd heartily need your assistance in extricating me from this sacrificial gift wrapping.
How on earth did you do that, Doctor?
Elemental, my dear Benton.
Oh! Good job, Benton.
Oh, no, you don't, Chuck.
Accept this life I now dedicate to thee.
Oh no, the chicken. Oh. Alrighty. That is part 4.
Okay.
Got a little goofy, but that's okay. That's alright. Yeah, we had to take down a man dressed in a newspaper. And, you know, the effects aren't always great, but that's okay.
Well, for the 70s, it's pretty good.
The close-up on his face actually worked out pretty well. Like, I think the mask works. It's the making him bigger that's not quite there, but that's alright. I'll be curious if there's an updated version of this, because I hear that a lot, that for some reason the BritBox versions that we watch are always the original, like, broadcast versions, basically. So they do a lot of new effects and stuff, kind of like what Star Trek did with the original series, but we just don't watch that, apparently. So I'd be curious if there's anything for that with Azal.
Yeah.
I didn't write down too much on that episode, so I hope we get a bit more in the next one. You know, okay, I understand the whole, you know, they're the ones that are, you know, they're winning over the crowd and everything like that, but there's not one person there who's like, maybe we shouldn't murder a man in cold blood. Like, well, and also the fact that everyone kind of knows that there is a witch living in the town. Like, she's just kind of there.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. Like, none of them have ever thought, like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do this, or I don't know.
Well, again, you would think that if they understand that the vicar, Mr. Magister, has essentially ordered them to burn the witch, I mean, there's a certain amount of medieval philosophy there. but we're not in medieval times anymore.
Yeah.
And you would think more of them would look around at this and go, wait a minute, this is... If there's something wrong with this guy, perhaps we should turn him over to the police rather than tie him up with maypole ribbons and burn him.
Yeah. Which actually, because we were mentioning the modern episode we're going to watch soon, there is actually like 2 episodes later with the 13th Doctor. There's an episode called The Witchfinders where they basically do that, where it's, I think they meet, I can't remember which king it is. I think it's like King James or something. And he's played by Alan Cumming. And there's all this stuff with witches and like mud zombies and stuff. And the Doctor has to figure it out. And it's all weird and everything. So,
King James would be about the right time because James would have been there early 1600s. He took the throne in 1603, I think, when Elizabeth died. Don't remember how long he reigned. But this was about the time... again, the 1619, 1620 witch trials in Salem. So, again, that does roughly correspond.
Yeah, so it's a very strange episode because, I mean, it's Alan Cumming, hunting witches and stuff like that. But it's a very fun episode. And honestly, again, I've mentioned this before, but I think the 13th Doctor excels at historical episodes. Cool. So, but that's not the one we're going to watch. So,
well, we could watch both of them.
We could, I guess. There's no reason we can't. So, perhaps we'll think about that. We will have one more rewatch that we'll have to do for the 3rd Doctor, which is the 3 Doctors. So maybe we could do that one. Although I was kind of thinking of other stuff with like the 10th Doctor, but we'll have to see. Why doesn't Benton use a gun more often? Like he was really good with that,
and had a silencer on it.
Yeah,
not exactly standard issue.
Yeah. He's kind of like the most built soldier at unit, so you think he would be a fighter, but might be better as a marksman.
No! Stop it! It's evil! Can't you see that?
I like that. I also like that the only thing they were going to offer was a chicken. Like, really? That's it? Couldn't get anything else?
That's, I don't want to say standard issue, but it's very common, especially in the Caribbean. Santeria and Voodoo and places like that, they use a lot of chicken blood.
Welcome! Bach, stop them!
Oh no, Bach. I mean, he is stone.
The master's a magician, I tell you.
All his feats are based on science, either ours or the secret sounds of the demons.
I guess he only says Dæmons
There you
once.
Are, that proves you're talking nonsense.
You trying to tell me that the invocations, the rituals, even the Sabbath itself are just so much window dressing?
No, of course not. No, they are essential to generate and control the psionic forces. And to control the demon himself.
Shouldn't we get over there and sort this demon thing out?
How?
Well, I could get the men...
Yes?
Well, we could...
Stand around, hold hands, sing Kumbaya.
All we can do is wait.
Who in the whole galaxy is not my inferior? There is not one creature.
Not even one.
Not one. Save the last of the demons.
I wonder why he's the last.
This offering. Magister! Magister!
Oh no, he's flammable.
No! A friend!
Oh,
see?
No, magistrate's not right! To do my will shall be the whole of the law. It's not right, I tell you! Oh, baby!
this is the one cool guy in the coven.
Right foot up, keep to the tunnel.
Nice special effect.
Yeah.
What basis is that? Some kind of ornament?
Not exactly, sir.
Jenkins?
Shut for the wings there. 5 rounds rapid.
Run him over. They got any of the bazookas left over?
That seemed to work with the Yetis.
Yeah.
Might as well use a pea shooter on 4-inch armor.
Sergeant. Get the bazooka, Sergeant.
Oh, there we go.
Right, sir. Have you with me?
I still don't know why you can't just run him over.
The time has come for the completion of the experiment or its destruction.
Then fulfill your mission by granting the ultimate power to me. Who else is there strong enough to give these humans the leadership they need?
You remember somebody else thinking like that? What was the boundless name? Hitler. Yes, that's right, Adolf Hitler. Or was it Genghis Khan?
Nuh.
Son, just go. You've done enough harm. We gave knowledge to man.
You certainly did. Thanks to you, man can now blow up the world, and he probably will.
Is man such a failure then? Shall I destroy him?
No! A strong leader can force him to learn.
Oh boy. Oh!
Well done, Sergeant.
Good job, Benton.
Look.
Aww.
Kill me, not him!
Broke his logic, I guess. Whoa!
Well, by a ridiculous and foolhardy act of self-sacrifice, Joe here has managed to save us.
I did?
She did?
You did. You see, Azal couldn't face a fact as irrational and as illogical as her being prepared to give up her life for me. Look,
Oh.
Joe, why don't you go and get out of that ridiculous garb?
Okay.
Good job, Joe.
Benton, get ready to move out.
Yes, sir. Right, you lot. You heard the man. The picnic's over.
Oh, come on, Benton.
Right, Benton, get him moved out. And take him with you. Maximum security guard.
Yes, sir. Right. Get moving.
Maybe take Yates
Look
with
after
you.
him.
Some handcuffs and leg irons would be appropriate.
Nuh.
All underway, sir.
Sergeant, we must do the fertility dance to celebrate.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm still rather busy.
Oh, nonsense, Sergeant. Come along.
Fancy a dance, Brigadier? It's kind of you, Captain Yates. I'm rather for pint.
Nuh.
You're right, Joe. There is magic in the world after all.
Alrighty. That is the end of season 8.
Well, I have to say, there was a great build-up, and it's a good premise. I mean, that is a science fiction, even magic scenario from way back. You basically you have a machine like a doomsday machine that cannot fulfill its programming because of illogical data being fed to it. I don't think the performance, that last couple of minutes of the script, matched the premise.
Yeah.
Still very good. Again, the idea that the godlike creature cannot accept the fact that someone would sacrifice themselves for someone else. I mean, seriously, that's the basis of Christianity and a lot of other religions as well. I don't want to say it was a letdown, but it wasn't as powerful as I think it could have been.
Yeah. It was a little quick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it just down to he was zapping the doctor for maybe a second, and then Joe jumped in, and then he exploded, and then it's like, well, okay, good job, Joe. You did something. So, that was... And then just the ending of, like, them all dancing and the master being taken away and stuff. It's like, well, It's a strangely, like, weird but almost backwards fitting ending to the season. Like, I feel like we did just finish a story arc, An entire season with the same villain.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, this was completely different than anything else. So,
but to me also the perfect sarcastic counterpoint to all of this happiness is fancy a dance, Brigadier. It's all the same to you. I think I'll go have a pint.
Yeah.
That was perfect. That was, to me, that's where it should have ended.
Yeah. So, alrighty. Well, to jump into the notes, the first thing I wrote down is Azal and Destroy. So, first off, he's the last of the demons. For some reason, I kind of wish they had said, it's like, well, wait, what happened to them? But I don't know, maybe we'll get that in another episode or something if they ever come back. Although I guess if he's the last one and he just exploded, he's probably not going to come back. So, but yeah, that was kind of an interesting little thing. It's like, oh, he's the last of the demons. Like, oh, well, that's a shame. They're an interesting species. But so their whole thing is that if an experiment fails, they destroy it. And now, I understand the example they used, but it doesn't work in this show of like, remember Atlantis? And it's like, yes, I do remember that episode of Doctor Who where you weren't there. It was, I can't even remember if that was in the future or not. Was that in the 80s, I think?
Yeah, I think so, something like that.
Yeah, it was something like that. It wasn't really too far in the future, where it was like, yeah, yes, the Atlanteans and the crazy mad scientist, and then it explodes, and they get out of there and stuff, and it's like, yes, I do remember that episode. You weren't there, Azal, so...
I think what he was trying to say, though, at least from what I got from it, is Atlantis is one of those civilizations that they tried to bring forward with technology, again, like the Egyptians, but for some reason it went wrong. Of course, the standard thing is Atlantis gained the use of some kind of astounding power, whether it was nuclear or solar or whatever, that they then misused and caused the entire continent to sink.
Yeah.
But again, we've seen Atlantis before, so again, that was a minor continuity thing.
I guess it could just be that, when Azal destroyed Atlantis, it was just that it sunk, and then that's where it was at the bottom of the ocean when the Doctor found it, and the scientist was originally trying to bring it back to the surface, and then he was like, or I could blow up the planet. So, I'm not too concerned about continuity errors with that episode because it wasn't a particularly good episode anyway. So that's all right. That did just remind me though. Talking about Atlantis and this great power they had, that is actually part of Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually, in the fourth season of Yu-Gi-Oh! This is a complete filler arc that they did where normally the entire show has been about ancient Egypt and 5,000 years ago and stuff. Suddenly in the fourth season it's like, yes, but 10,000 years ago, there was the kingdom of Atlantis that was so great because of this stone that fell from the heavens, and then everyone turned into these weird furry creatures, and then it was destroyed, and now the king is back 10,000 years later and stuff.
There's an old movie, I want to say from the late 50s or early 60s, about Atlantis. But, again, having taught world history, there's also the theory that what is now considered to be the story of Atlantis was actually the island of Theros, where they had a relatively advanced civilization, more advanced than for example, the Minoans or the Mycenaeans or even the Egyptians or anybody else from that time period. But there was a volcano on the island called Santorini, and when it exploded, it literally sank like 90% of the island. And people apparently did not want to give up on the idea that such a great civilization could have all died out at once, very similar to Pompeii or anything like that. But that then leads into the basically the dark ages of the Greek civilization before they finally come back with the beginning of the city-states with Athens and Sparta and Mycenae and all the rest of those. So I don't know, but again, the myth of Atlantis, very interesting there in that he says we tried this experiment. Didn't work, so we destroyed it. At least that's what I was thinking he was saying.
Yeah.
But again, why is he saying now he hasn't been called up for 10,000 years? Yeah. Why is he saying the experiment with Earth has failed? Because
I'm not quite sure about that. Like, what is it that has failed? Or is it just because, like, maybe it's almost like a Wrath of Khan thing. Like, they haven't checked in when they should be. And only now is he coming back and he's being summoned by the Master. And he's like, okay, well, something's wrong here. So maybe I need to
And the
destroy
Doctor does
it.
say, you've given us literally the power to destroy ourselves. And if we're not careful, we will end up doing that. So,
And I guess it's also the fact that it's not just he shows up and he's like, well, I guess I need to destroy it now. It's that he shows up and he has a choice. He can either pass on his power to someone and they will, I guess finish the experiment and make it a success. Or if there's no one worthy of that sort of power, then he will destroy it because then it's a failed experiment. Honestly, is this going to be one of those weird, like, we could have used another episode sort of situations? Like, I don't know. I kind of want to know more about the demons and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, maybe a little bit more backstory might have helped out there. But again, overall, 98% of it went right where we were hoping it would go. And then again, the ending is not as great as we had hoped it would be, but it was an interesting overall. I mean, again, thumbs up on it, definitely.
Yeah. Let's see. We had May Day, which was interesting. This, I guess this All Saints Day after Beltane festival, where everyone is just again. I mean, I guess it's sort of the townspeople that are easily convinced of everything, which you see that in other stuff, where it's like, oh well, the townspeople, they're being told all of this, but then one person comes in and is like, no, it's this, and then they turn on them and stuff. So I guess it works. I'm still a little curious why these average, ordinary people in 1971 were about to burn a man alive. And I know, because it's not... The townspeople didn't come up with that. It was obviously the Master's servants there. But still, that just seemed kind of odd. Like, no one was being like, hey, wait a second, maybe we shouldn't...
Well, I kind of accepted that because they had accepted the fact that there was this white witch in their midst, and even though they might have thought she was a kook, Miss Hawthorne was still there, and they've just kind of grown to understand that there are people like this, so that when, and I can't remember the paper guy's name, but when he says, hey, if you've accepted the fact that we have a white witch in our midst, then here's a practitioner of the black magic arts, and what do we do with them? We burn them. So,
Yeah.
The Master said, I think, earlier in one of the episodes that they were a simple-minded people. So,
I mean, yeah. So, it is also just funny that it's like, oh, well, the Doctor is arriving back in the village. Well, we must give him a warm welcome. So this was the Master's idea to do this, dress up in the newspaper clippings and everything. And I like when they're marching through the street and doing all their stuff. It cuts to the one kid and the mom takes them back into the house. Like, no, we're not going out there. We're not going around these strange people.
Yeah. And I have to say, I lived in some small towns when I was there in 63 and 64. Herringswell, tiny little town, probably had fewer than 250 people. Mildenhall probably had fewer than 5,000, but I never saw any kind of May Day celebrations.
Yeah.
None of that. In fact, my favorite ritual, if you will, that I saw while I was there was Guy Fawkes Day. I actually saw in Mildenhall, just outside of town, there were some farmers who built a bonfire, and they had the little wagon that had the effigy of Guy Fawkes in it. Penny for the guy, and they would go around to the houses, penny for the guy. That was so cool. I really enjoyed that. But I never saw any kind of May Day celebrations or anything about Beltane for that matter.
Yeah, that also reminds me. So I've seen this in 2 shows now. Once in Modern Doctor Who, and another in a show I watched called Ashes to Ashes, where something will happen and the entire neighborhood, they have this feast, basically this party, but they put the tables out on the street and they all have this party in the street, and everyone's eating. It's like a giant Thanksgiving dinner basically. But they're all in the street, and every time it shows up it looks like the most magical thing. And I'm not a very sociable person, but I'm still like, man, that looks cool. And I asked people, the British viewers, like, does that still happen? Do people still like throw these giant parties? And there were like 1 or 2 people that were like, yeah, even like this year that still happens. So,
well, there's a similar thing in the United States that they call block parties. But again, I've lived pretty much all over the United States, and I've never actually seen. I've heard of block parties, but I've never actually seen or been to one.
Yeah. So, and of course, down here in Oklahoma, nobody talks to each other anyway. So, I don't know if I've said this on a video, but that was one thing when I was in college. My French teacher said that when she moved to Oklahoma, she was like, "Oh, well, I guess I gotta, go get to know my neighbors and stuff." And her dad said, "I haven't talked to my neighbors in 30 years. You don't need to talk to them in Oklahoma. We don't talk to each other."
Yeah, we're kind of strange here.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like it. Especially too, and I don't mean to like, I don't know, I don't want to get into maybe stereotypes or anything, but we are in the Bible Belt of the United States.
We're in the buckle on the Bible Belt.
Yeah, and you don't want to talk to Bible Belt people. I suppose they can get maybe weirdly friendly. I don't know. Maybe I'm not explaining that well enough.
But they can also say, if you park 2 feet over the property line on the street, they ask you to move your car.
Yep, had that happen. But it's even like the same way, and this is so off topic, but still but that's all right. Where there was some open house we went to one time. And whoever was like running the open house there, first off, was too talkative, and I don't like that. I don't like talking to people. But then at the end, when we were leaving, she just said blessings, and that was just one of those like just on the way out, just blessings. And I was like, let's get out of here. They got weird people here. Like not even like have a blessed day. Like a sentence. Yeah. So. Let us know if you have to deal with weird people wherever you live. Whether it's if it's weird people that have parties in the streets in Britain, or your weird neighbors that you don't want to talk to. Let us know in the comments below. I did like the demonstration they did of the Doctor's magic, which was it's like, oh well, have that glass, that bulb shatter, and it's like, oh, Benton has a gun, doesn't he? And then again, though, from like hundreds of feet away, up in the air, that the rooster on top of the church, he did manage to hit that. That was incredible. And then he also, after the display with Bessie and everything, he actually shot the guy's hand and shot the gun out of his hand. And it's like, Benton, where has this been all season? You had this sort of marksman skill all season, and you haven't used it?
And again, where was he carrying that silencer?
I don't know. That means... And also because, Benton and Yates, they didn't come down here in uniform. I mean, they did, take the Brigadier's helicopter, but that means he brought a silencer with him for some reason.
Which could have been in the helicopter, but why would he have had it there in the pub or whatever the row house or whatever that was where they were?
Yeah.
So again, it's just minor, but yeah, when we look at that, we're going like, okay, where did that come from?
Yeah. Well, it's not even like, oh, why does he have this? Or it's more like, why has he not used this before? Especially because every time he gets into a fight, it doesn't end well. So if he could just use his gun, that'd be a lot better. Like, I want Benton to be like the John Wick of UNIT. So, let's see. I like how the Doctor explains, too, that, there's no magic, it's all science. And Mrs. Hawthorne, it's like, oh, so all of that, the ceremonies, the robes and stuff, that's all just window dressing. It's like, no, that's part of the science. It's just what you say is magic isn't magic. But everything they're doing is legit. It's just science.
Yeah, it just helps to focus the psionic powers.
Yeah, it's basically like focusing the emotions of the town so that the Master can bring forth Azal. Yeah. So it's just very interesting that it's basically like, it's one of those, like, we're not disproving anything you're doing. We're just calling it what it actually is. It's science, not magic.
Yeah.
I don't know why that reminds me, but this is a very strange reference to make about this. But I think there's some sort of documentary or something of conspiracy theories about The Shining. Have you ever heard of that? Well, it's just, I say documentary. I don't think it's actually about, the making of the movie or anything. I don't think Stanley Kubrick had anything to do with it. But it's a bunch of crackpots and their theories about The Shining. And there's stuff where it's like, oh, it's an allegory for the Holocaust and stuff. But there's one guy who, because they bring up the whole thing of like, the faked moon landing and stuff like that. And people say, oh, it was Kubrick that faked the moon landing. And someone said, one of them was like, no, I fully believe that we went to the moon. I just don't think we had the equipment to film it. And it's like, so the footage we saw was fake, but they did actually go there. And it's like, so that's a strange half and half theory.
Yeah, you can send people to the moon, but you don't have the equipment to film it?
Yeah, it's one of those, it's like, 50%. It's not a passing grade, but okay, we'll give you that. So again, a weird reference to make there, but it's like, no, everything about this, magic and rituals and stuff, everything they're doing is legit. It's just science, not magic.
And by the way, one more shout out to the special effects people. They obviously did not blow up the church. Mm-hmm. But the explosion and the little matte shot of the ruins there after that, I mean, it's very brief, only 1 or 2 seconds. But again, very good, very convincing that there actually was this huge explosion there in the middle of this tiny town. And I was watching that last scene as the camera pulled back. It stayed there on the village green and never showed the church because they would have had to impose the ruins of the church on it again.
Right. So, I mean, honestly, the only sort of bad effect maybe is just when Azal sort of grows. But then once he's, the full size and everything, and they just, show him, they've kind of got it angled, upwards at him. It looked pretty good, honestly. Yeah. So, and the makeup and the mask and everything was really good on him. So, and then like the only other thing after that is just the gargoyle costume, but it's fine. It's not bad or anything. I did really like the explosion they did when they blasted him with the bazooka. It was a lot more feathery though than I would have imagined. Like you'd think it would just be rocks just falling down. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I suspect the gargoyle was made out of some kind of fiberglass or even styrofoam or something like that. That's why it tended to float down rather than rain down.
Yeah. And then it is hilarious because they go through all of this to get this bazooka and destroy it, and it just reforms right back. And it's like, oh, well, dang it. We wasted a bazooka. I still think it would have been hilarious, because they did the whole thing where they throw it and he destroys it to show the Brigadier how strong he is. It would have been hilarious if it was like, all right, run him over. And because the car was right there. Like, if you just run at this thing at full force, it's got to do something. Even if it does reform, you at least tried. Yeah. But maybe the Brigadier doesn't want to damage his car. He has lost his helicopter, so he's going to need a new one of those. Let's see. We had Osgood and the machine. Did Osgood survive?
He jumped off.
He did.
And they didn't ever come back to him, but we assume that he did.
Yeah, so I hope he did. This poor guy that cannot understand the doctor's science.
Well, I mean, seriously, who could?
I mean, yeah. So,
because he likened it to Einstein's special theory of relativity, and you got this poor technician, who's not even doesn't appear to be an officer. Wasn't he a sergeant, Osgood, or something like that?
I think so.
Yeah. So he's not even an officer. Probably hasn't been to college, and he's being asked to put together a machine with the complexity of the theory of relativity.
Yeah. So, I also I don't know if we've had this yet with Pertwee, but he said you have to reverse the polarity. And I know that's one of his classic sayings, and they'll reference that in later Doctor Who. But I think that's one of Pertwee's big things. I don't know if we've heard that yet. We must have in 2 seasons, but I can't think of it. So I feel like I would have brought it up then, but oh well. Let's see. Well, we had the whole thing of, again, do you destroy or do you grant power? It is interesting he was going to grant the Doctor that power, though. And then, obviously, the Doctor doesn't want that power. So then the whole thing, goes awry until eventually Joe somehow saved the day. So, but that was interesting. And yeah, just if it was like a little bit more, if you drag that out a little bit more with Jo, about to sacrifice herself or something, or even if it was, because it feels like she just got in the way and it was just immediate. If it was something like the doctor was being electrocuted, he was suffering, and then Jo gets in front, she starts suffering, and then he sort of stops and then he breaks down. Just let it last 30 more seconds, then that could have worked out. Although, I will say we were spared a John Pertwee with his eyes bulging, going nuts there, so I guess we can take what we can get.
And this is just silliness. When they were running from the church, I noticed when all the monks were coming out, they didn't have any kind of split in the front of their robe, and they were struggling trying to run because it's like running in a sack, because then the two guys there tripped on the stairs and fell down. One guy fell down, the other guy fell over him, and then they both got up and they were really kind of duck walking, flailing, trying to get away.
Yeah.
I mean, it was unintentionally humorous, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like you might as well just start hopping to try to get away at that point. So and then the explosion on the church was a really good effect, so and then we just have the nice festivities, and the Master has been arrested. He didn't get away, so we said maybe we're going to get some sort of a break with the Master, but I imagine maybe he'll come back. I mean, I don't know. I still don't know when the unfortunate passing of Roger Delgado is. So, but at the very least, he is, I guess, stuck on Earth again if he's in prison.
If he's in prison, wouldn't the Doctor have access to the Master's TARDIS?
In theory, but there is also the thing that he still wouldn't know how to pilot it, basically. So I think that's the other thing, because I've said a couple times, like, oh, well, they basically crippled the TARDIS so it can't move, but people have also pointed out that the Time Lords specifically take the knowledge away from the Doctor so that he can't fly even a normal TARDIS. So it may, although for the first 6 seasons or so of the show, he couldn't fly the TARDIS anyway, so maybe
knew how to take off, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, the TARDIS just sort of went where it went, so I don't know. But that's pretty much it. Thoughts on the season as a whole?
Well, again, you were right. The idea of this season arc that had a villain was probably the most coherent, probably the most continuity that we've seen. Although there were some, again, we've talked about, how much time between this episode and that episode.
Right.
How did the Master get away and find this, that, and the other? But again, overall, I think they're beginning to finally understand what Doctor Who is about.
Yeah, and after 8 years.
After 8 years, they're finally figuring out, hey, wait a minute, if we make sure that we just do this, it will get better and better, because we will able to constantly be able to refine it and keep doing better instead of just, randomly throwing crap out there.
Yeah, and honestly, the Master, Roger Delgado, is just such a perfect addition to the cast and everything. So even, because, it's like, that was 5 stories, and each are, multiple episodes long. And at the end of the day, it is always the same villain for the entire season. But you never get tired of this guy. Yeah. He's so entertaining to watch,
Now, what's up at next? Did you say Peloton is the next one?
No. That will be the one after that. Next up, and I've been going back and forth on whether or not to tell you this, but I'll go ahead and say it because I already know. The next episode is called Day of the Daleks. So,
okay,
it's been a while since we've had the Daleks, hasn't it?
Yeah. So, but this will be their first encounter with the Third Doctor.
Yes, very much. So, and if we haven't had the Cybermen with Pertwee either, have we? Actually, I don't think the Third Doctor ever meets the Cybermen. So, because I remember there was one episode, I think it was with the Fifth Doctor, where they were showing past encounters and there was just nothing with the Third Doctor. So, but this will be the first encounter of the Daleks with the Third Doctor, and we haven't seen them.
Well, since they blew up.
Yeah, that was the thing. They just sort of ended there.
With the Emperor.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that one again. What episode was that? All right, there's the playlist. There are 115 videos in our playlist, by the way.
I saw that the other day. I thought, wow.
Well,
which means that we've been doing this for just over 2 years.
Yeah. There's actually, I think...
Does that include our tour through it, or just when we started?
No, that includes the whole thing. So, from the first one, An Unearthly Child. But yeah, for the first while, I think I put in this giant note. The first 31 videos of this playlist were all tour stuff before we moved on into Marco Polo. So, okay. Let's see. What was the last... Let's see. We had the Ice Warriors, Enemy of the World.
Wasn't it like Power of the Daleks? Or was...
Oh, it was the Evil of the Daleks, wasn't it?
Yeah. Is that the one where they picked up Victoria?
Yes.
And then went to the planet and the Dalek Emperor blew up?
Right. So the Evil of the Daleks, that was the end of season 4. So, yeah, so we had the Evil of the Daleks, and then right after that was Tomb of the Cybermen. So, yeah, it has been quite a while since we have seen the Daleks, and now we will see them in color and everything. So, I feel like it's just going to be hilarious with the Brigadier, especially because he hasn't encountered the Daleks or anything. He's only encountered the Cybermen before, all of this started. So I'll be very curious to see how that episode will play out. So,
alrighty then.
But yeah, that is basically it. You got anything else?
I got nothing.
Then this was barely an hour and a half long.
Well, we're slackers.
Yeah, well, it's the fact that we didn't have more than 2 episodes, so it all works out. But we still talked forever, so it was probably the same amount of discussion that we normally do, just one less episode than last time. So, that is basically it. With all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next time. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching this video. There's a bunch of links on screen if you want to go click around to any of those. There's a playlist for all of our Doctor Who classic reactions, all 115 or so. There's also a playlist for all of my Doctor Who modern reactions, all 200 or so. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.